Hey, we're going to go ahead and get started. Good afternoon, everybody. My name's Todd Dupler. I am the Chief Advocacy and Public Policy Officer for the Recording Academy, and we're excited to have all of you join us for our Music Advocacy Day participant training webinar. We can go to the next slide. Um, as we get started, I just want to introduce some of the folks we have on the call with us today. From our team here in Washington, D.C., our Senior Director for Advocacy and Public Policy, Kim Alton, and our Manager for Government Affairs, Montana Miller. You're going to hear from both of them throughout the call, as well as some of our other Academy team members. And first of all, I know we have a whole mix of people on the call today. First, I'll remind you all this is being recorded, so if there's anything that you miss, or if you know somebody else who isn't able to join the call today, we are recording this and we'll make it available afterwards. And secondly, I know we have a lot of different kinds of people. It's people that have done Music Advocacy Day before, people that are doing this just for the very first time. So I'd be curious just to know who we have. If this is your first time, if you've done it before, I think we have a poll question we can put out and let people let us know. So chime in and tell us where you're at. And with that, we're going to tell you, oh, this is exciting. So we have a pretty good mix, um, almost a 50-50 split. I think more people that are doing this for the first time. So we're excited to have you here. And as you go to the next slide, the purpose of this call is to make sure you understand what it is you signed up for, what we do on Music Advocacy Day, why we do it, and to make you comfortable with it so that you know what to expect and what's going to happen next week when you show up for your appointment and walk in for the day. So what is Music Advocacy Day? Simply put, it is the largest and really only grassroots advocacy campaign for music and music people. As some of you may know, but for some of you new Academy members, you may not, we have a full-time team here in Washington, D.C. that does advocacy work for you. But what we have found is that you yourself are often the most powerful and most effective advocate for music people. And what happens on Music Advocacy Day is we have the chance to show that there is music everywhere. In every congressional district across the country, and we can connect lawmakers with people not far away in some other city, but in their own local community, who are part of the Recording Academy, a part of music, and can really drive home the importance of these issues. So next week, thousands of Academy members are going to meet with their congressional representatives in local offices and in music spaces around the country. And it is our chance to champion the issues that matter most to our music community. Go to the next slide. And just to show what that looks like effectively, we want to do all the work for you. We really want this to be an easy process for you. So we're the ones working to schedule all of these meetings for you. And then we send you the information and you just have to show up the day of and be an advocate for music. And we're going to walk you through how to do that over the course of the next hour. And then just to show you kind of the effectiveness of what we're able to accomplish with Music Advocacy Day, over 2,000 Recording Academy members have signed up to participate this year. That's another record for us. We had over 2,000 people sign up last year. We've never done it in back-to-back years. So this is the first time for 2 consecutive years that over 2,000 Academy members have signed up to do this. So when you go out to your meeting next week, whether you are with a large group of people, whether you're going to an office by yourself, which we'll talk about, know that you're really not alone, that there are Academy members doing this all across the country. We are going to be reaching over 300 congressional offices from the House of Representatives. We're also going to be engaging over 20 Senate offices, which is not something we normally do. That's kind of a stretch for us to reach that many Senate offices this year, which we're excited about. And when you look at it, we are reaching almost 75%, 3/4 of Congress. That just shows the reach that music has. I think people have this misconception that music only happens in certain cities and certain parts of the country. And the power of this initiative is that it really shows that music is everywhere, and it makes this a really powerful advocacy force to talk about some of these issues. And it's effective. We know that it works. If we look at the next slide, if you look at all of those bills that are listed on that slide, that's all legislation that we advocated for during Music Advocacy Day through the years. And every single one of those was eventually signed into law. So we know that this works when we connect with lawmakers at home, when we make this relevant to them because they realize that music is right there in their backyard. They pay attention. And they do respond on some of these issues. And if you look at these bills, they really run the gamut across a wide range of issues. You have ticketing reform, music licensing reform, support for shuttered venues during the pandemic, help for small individual copyright owners. And then most recently this summer, we passed the HITS Act into law. And if you've done Music Advocacy Day before, you know that this is a law that we have been lobbying on and advocating for 5 years. And that's another really important thing to keep in mind. Sometimes we advocate for an issue, and when it doesn't happen right away, we get frustrated or we feel like, did we really make a difference? I came and talked to the member about this bill or about this issue, and then nothing happened. But sometimes it does take time. And the HITS Act is a great illustration of that. We first introduced it in 2020. It's been a recurring part of our Music Advocacy Day messaging that we've talked to lawmakers about, and it just took time to fully educate members of Congress and find the right time for it to get passed into law. So we're excited that we did it. And just remember, we play the long game. Sometimes you get that immediate gratification, sometimes you don't, but it doesn't mean that you're not making a real impact. So with that, let's kind of go through the agenda of what we're going to accomplish over the rest of this call. We're going to cover 4 key issues. We're going to talk about our social media campaign. We're going to talk about the key issues that we want you to talk about. I know that's something everybody's very curious about. And we're going to talk about Meeting 101. Just what does it look like when you go in to meet with the member of Congress or their staff? How do you behave? How do you ask questions? And then we're going to take questions from you. So to start, we do have a special guest with us for the first part of this webinar. And so we wanted to make sure we had her ready to join to talk about our social media campaign and just the importance that our social media campaign plays in getting the word out and amplifying this initiative. I'm excited to welcome Carla Jara. Hi, Carla.
Hi, Todd. Thank you for having me. And thank you everyone for being part of this special day. For those that don't know me, I'm Carla Jara. I'm the social media content producer here at the Recording Academy. And just want to thank everyone for your support and your advocacy work. You're making a true difference for music creators everywhere. So next Thursday on the 25th on Music Advocacy Day, we want to spark conversation on social media so that more people know about the important work happening on Music Advocacy Day, but just our advocacy efforts in general, and for people to join our efforts from home. So to help you with all of this, we are putting together a social media toolkit. Well, it's already put together. And when you can, please take a moment to review it carefully, because inside of this toolkit, you're going to find ready to post graphics that you can share before you head into your meetings. These graphics will come in different sizes depending on the platform you are choosing to share on. There's also suggested copy. So if you're like me and just don't know how to caption things, it's already ready for you, but feel free to add your own voice to it, your own spin to it. There's also social media overlays that are pretty simple to use, and you could add your photos underneath these overlays, photos that you take during the day, as well as step-by-step instructions. If you're not familiar with our toolkits, never used them before, we do have instructions, so that way it is very user-friendly for you. When you share, please use the hashtag #MusicAdvocate. This is so that way we can find your post easily and amplify and engage. We'll mainly be activating on Instagram and on Facebook, but feel free to use platforms where your audience is most active. Just don't forget to tag us at Recording Academy so we can see your content. And then, of course, if it is allowed in meetings, just play it by ear, case by case. You'll have someone with you to let you know if you can or not. But in your meetings, we definitely encourage you to capture photos and short vertical videos. Both are great. And then afterwards, you can send your content to the email addresses addresses provided in your toolkit. And then I see that Todd has dropped it into the chat. So when you send your content over to us, make sure you are including your name and social media handles, where the meeting took place, and then just in case there's other people in your content, names and their handles if possible as well. And then as you're capturing content, just a couple of things to think about. If your mobile device allows it, please record clips in 4K just so we have the highest resolution of content to use. And then just also remember that you are a music advocate, and this is very much your story. So feel free to send us clips from your point of view, of yourself, of the fellow advocates that you're with, because we're also telling your story as well. In the toolkit, we're also including a link to the Music Advocacy Day action page. Whenever you can, especially on IG stories, include this link in your post. It's a direct way for people to support all of our advocacy efforts. And yeah, that's essentially the gist of social media for Music Advocacy Day. Again, like your participation in Music Advocacy Day online on social media really helps amplify the impact of the meeting, of our advocacy efforts, and doing the good work out there. And then if you have any further questions about social media or anything like that, feel free to reach out. We're more than happy to help guide you along the way and answer any questions. So we're excited to see what you post and what you send us.
Thank you, Carla. We appreciate that. Um, Three things I just want to follow up on. One, I know you're probably wondering, when do I get the toolkit? That is going to get emailed to all of you. It's another good reminder to keep checking your emails. I know we've sent out a lot of information via email, but it's all important, and that is how you'll get your toolkit. Second, I love what Carla said about this really is about telling your story. That's a theme we're going to keep coming back to as we go through the other steps of the Advocacy Day. And I also finally just want to encourage you, one of my favorite things about Music Advocacy Day is checking social media, because when you're part of that story going out, you see all of your other Academy members all over the country who are doing the same thing that you're doing. And it really is that great reminder that you may be in one office in one location where you live and you're not seeing everything else that's happening. But when you share what you've done and then you look and see what everybody else is sharing online, it really makes you feel like you're part of something bigger, because you see just how widespread the impact is. So social media really is one of my favorite parts of the day next week, and excited for everybody to be a part of it. So I think the next thing on our list is to talk about the issues. I know that's something that, again, everybody's really eager and anxious to know about. And what I want to say up front is, one, we do not expect you to be a policy expert. That's something we're going to repeat often. The purpose of these next few minutes is just to introduce you to these issues, make you familiar with them and comfortable with them. But we're not expecting you to take notes and write this down. We're not expecting you to do any homework. And most importantly, as Carla said earlier, we really want this to be about your story. So we'll help you. We'll talk about how to connect this to make it personal when you go into your meetings. But we have two key issues that we're going to be talking about this year in three asks. So the two main issues are everybody's favorite two letters, AI, artificial intelligence, because we know how critical that's been as part of the conversation, and funding for the arts. Now, every year, we go through and decide what issues we want to talk about for Music Advocacy Day. Some years we've had a really long list of asks. Sometimes we've kept it shorter. And what we have found is what's most effective is if we can keep our messaging tight and concise and keep it to just a short list of asks, we're going to have a much better impact on the members of Congress. When we come in with a really long list of requests, it's harder for it to penetrate, to take hold and take hook with the offices, because there's just too many things. And so we really tried to identify this year the things that seemed the most timely, where there's an urgency to the issue, a place where we could really make an impact, where we thought by having all of our members go to the congressional offices and talk about these issues, it would actually make a difference and move the needle. So that's why we've kind of zeroed in on these two key points. And it doesn't mean we're not also working on a lot of other things because we are. We continue to engage on performance royalties, on free expression, on ticketing reform. There's a lot of things. But for next week, we really felt that these were the most timely, the most urgent, and where we could make the biggest impact. So to kick off and start talking about AI and how we're going to engage there, I'm going to hand it over to Kim.
Todd, and good afternoon, everyone. We're excited to have you join this year for our Music Advocacy Day. As Todd mentioned, artificial intelligence, it's the hot topic right now of the day, and certainly here in DC. Just this week, there were hearings in the House and there was a hearing in the Senate on AI related issues. So the timing of you all coming into your congressional office to talk about this issue and the impact that it has on creators is really perfect timing right now. And just to give you just a little bit of background in terms of kind of the debate of what's happening here in DC, of what's happening in Congress, and what's happening within this current administration, you have big tech companies that are really pushing and advocating to have free reign to be able to develop their AI models, scraping and using content without permission and without payment from the creators of the different creative outputs. And we think that that is wrong. We certainly, at the Recording Academy, think that AI has many promises, has a lot of potential, but we certainly want to guard against and prevent the unauthorized use of your copyrighted works. Next slide, please. So the first message that we are really asking that you relay relates to AI theft and really sharing with your member of Congress that right now tech companies, they are training their AI models by scraping. They're going to websites, they're going to unauthorized places to gather content, shadow websites, and they're not getting permission from the creators, and they're certainly not compensating the creators, and this is wrong. You'll hear ingestion, so that's a term that's used that's part of that whole process of scraping and gathering all of that content to feed the model, to make it smarter, to make it produce better outputs. So we are certainly asking that you relay the message that creators must be protected from AI theft, and that scraping without getting any sort of permission, without any compensation, that is not fair use. Next slide, please. So again, just reinforcing that message, say no to unlicensed training of AI, that it's imperative that these AI companies get permission again and pay for all of the inputs that make their technology possible.
And I'll come in real quick on that point. These next two asks are going to have a specific request around legislation or around funding. For this first ask, I know a lot of times we get asked, what's the bill number? What's the legislation? On this issue of AI training, right now, there's not a specific bill or a specific legislative thing for them to co-sponsor or support. It's really about building awareness and making sure that these members of Congress understand that AI training should license work from creators and that they should pay for what they're using. Because we know that these companies are going to be pushing for special treatment. There could be legislation or rulemaking in the future to let them do things for free that they want to do. And so that first ask is really about just establishing the principle that they should not be able to train AI for free without paying for the work that they use.
Great. All right, so we're going to move now to the No Fakes Act. No Fakes Act. So this is a bill that the Recording Academy has endorsed. We support this bill, and we think it is a step in the right direction to protect an individual's voice, image, or likeness from being used, and also for dealing with issues related to deep fakes. Can you go to the next slide, please? So here's a little bit of detail on the No Fakes Act. Um, we're really excited about this bill because it is bipartisan. You have Republicans, you have Democrats who support it. It's bicameral, so that means you have supporters in the Senate as well as in the U.S. House of Representatives who have come together to support this bill. And it's really aimed at providing a right of action so that individuals can protect their images, their voices, their likeness from any sort of unauthorized use. It would be uniform, so this is a federal law that would apply to all 50 states. And because of, First Amendment concerns, there are exemptions that are in the bill that are related to like satire or comedy or things of that nature. So again, this is a popular bill, consensus bill. Lots of individuals are on board with this bill, and we are asking, this is our ask, to please support, ask the member, co-sponsor, or pass the No Fakes Act.
Thanks, Kim. And now, Kim mentioned it's a consensus bill. That's really important, and lawmakers love to hear that. Some of the tech companies like Google, IBM, and OpenAI have all endorsed the No Fakes Act. So unlike the first issue, where it's a little more contentious with some of the AI companies, this is one where we've been able to get some of their support because they want that clarity for the rules of the road going forward. So with that, Montana, why don't you pick up the next issue?
Yeah, sounds great. So, of course, I don't need to tell this group that arts are essential and that investing in them are imperative, but that's why we're using Music Advocacy Day to advocate for Congress to fund the arts and fund the National Endowment for the Arts. So, in case you aren't familiar, the National Endowment for the Arts is a federally funded entity that reaches every congressional district, brings the arts to all congressional districts, building creative infrastructure in local communities, and expands access to the arts through various initiatives in school and youth programs, veteran support and rehabilitation, concerts, theater, community grants, and so many other programs that brings music and art to communities that may not otherwise have it. And it truly does touch every congressional district. And it's huge. And it has historically seen bipartisan, bicameral support for funding. And this year, it's very important that Congress continues to fund it and continues that bipartisan support. And for instance, Congress is having budget talks right now, and which is a huge reason why we're having this be a pillar of Music Advocacy Day. Our advocacy team has, submitted testimony throughout the year to Congress, urging them to fund the NEA. But now, as budget talks are imminent, it's so crucial for all of you as advocates to push for Congress to fund the NEA. And, overall, in the entire budget, congressional budget, it is 0.003% of the federal budget. Yet it has such a high return on investment. Historically, the NEA, every NEA grant dollar spent leverages another $9 to the economy in private and other public matching funds. So it's a huge economic benefit to support the NEA, not to mention all of the cultural and all the benefits that arts bring to communities. And the arts are at the core of our country's history, culture, and like I said, there's no better place to advocate for funding the arts than Music Advocacy Day. So we can go to the next slide, please. And so the ask this year is for Congress to fully fund the National Endowment for the Arts at $207 million for fiscal year 2026.
Great. Thanks, Montana. And I think, as you mentioned, that the fact that NEA grant dollars leverage matching funds is a great talking point. It makes it a smart investment of federal money. The fact that it pulls in additional money for every dollar spent, and I think also knowing that we're going into America's 250th, we know that This administration and lawmakers are going to want to make this a big celebratory year for America, and the NEA is actually on the council that is supposed to help plan these 250th events. So it's actually in their interest to make sure that the NEA is fully funded so that they can support all of these milestone celebrations that they want to do. With all of these issues, you're going to get an issue brief, a one sheet that summarizes all three issues on it in kind of bite-sized chunks and gives you the main ask line for each one, including the $207 million and the bill numbers for the No Fakes Act. So you'll have that on a sheet of paper that you can print out at home and bring with you to your meeting. But again, we don't want you to have to read off a page. We don't want you to feel like you have to memorize the right wording. The best thing you can do is to connect these issues to your own experiences. So with the arts, talk about how you've seen local art projects enhance your community, how you've seen people benefit from these arts projects in your district or in your community. And with AI, you can talk about certainly the positive side of AI, things that you've seen that are exciting, but then how you've seen it personally impact you or your colleagues, whether they've been impacted by deep fakes themselves from fake AI recordings, or if you know that you've seen training models that you think are using your music or taking your music without permission. So always finding a hook to personalize it and make it relevant to your story is going to be the most powerful thing. So with that, I think we're going to transition next to meeting 101, to actually talking about what happens in your meeting and what that looks like. So when you go to the next slide, you'll see that meetings come in all shapes and sizes. We kind of, for our purposes, kind of break them out into kind of three categories. You may have a meeting where it's just you and one other person going into the congressional office, a very small group. Some of you might be in a medium-sized group of like 3 to 9 participants, and some of you might be in a really large group. We call it 10 plus, but some of those groups have 20 and 30 and 40 people in them, where we have a lot of members who live together. So you'll be in one of those three categories, but they really come in all shapes and sizes, and each meeting will look a little bit different, right? So if you're in a meeting where it's just you and the member of Congress or their staff, or just you and 1 or 2 other people, you're going to be able to sit down and have like a really probably kind of in-depth conversation and visit. If you're in a medium group, you're going to have a team captain, kind of a group leader, to help manage your group meeting and make sure it stays on track and that everybody gets a chance to talk. And then if you're in a really large group, the larger it gets, it's almost becomes more of a town hall format and how you dialogue with the member of Congress. And you'll have, again, a team captain for that large group, and most likely you'll also have some academy staff to help support those really large group meetings as well. So the next slide. So I'm going to hand it over to Montana to kind of help us walk through each step of the meeting process.
Thanks, Todd. And before I get started, I just want to say, in case anybody missed, that this is being recorded and this will be emailed to you all, along with your issue brief, the social media guide, a mini 101 resource guide. So all of the things that we talk about today, you'll receive in your email. So like Todd said at the beginning, we're not expecting you to take notes or have this memorized, but we will be following up with this information as well. All right, so getting started for your meeting. So first and foremost, your meeting starts in your head 15 minutes before the time that you're emailed. At least I want everybody to prioritize, please, getting there early. Some of these district offices are kind of hard to find. They'll be in a business park or a weird office building, and you want to allow yourself extra time for any hiccups, any parking issues, or, going to the wrong floor. Or, there's so many business buildings that all, everything looks the same. So leave yourself time to get a little lost, to find it. Being early is a great thing. The last thing we want is to keep a congressional office waiting. They have, think we're putting the scheduling request in for them and doing these meetings, they have that through their whole district. They're so busy, and we're so grateful that they're, taking time to meet with us on Music Advocacy Day. And we really want to be respectful of that time. And so being early is just really key. And with that, we would ask that you check in at the front desk or equivalent, depending on where your meeting is, 5 minutes ahead of your scheduled start time. That way, if, for instance, if you're at a district office, usually they'll bring you into a conference room, get you seated, and that way you're ready to go when the staff or member of Congress comes in for the meeting. And then to kick off your meeting, just start, introduce yourself to the member of Congress or staff. And I think a great thing to say is, so you guys are all in your meetings because you are a constituent of these member of Congress. Let them know that, like, they love to meet with the people that they represent, and that doesn't always happen. So remind them that, that you live in their district, but then more importantly, how are you part of the music community? Are you a producer, a songwriter, an engineer? Are you an entertainment lawyer? You tell them just briefly about, what your role is in the music community. And that's a great way to jumpstart the meeting. And then from there, we can go to the next slide and Todd can talk about discussing the issues.
Sure. Thanks, Montana. And remember also that you're a member of the Recording Academy and the Grammys, and they're going to think that's really cool. So that's another really important thing to lean into, that not only are you a constituent that lives there, you're a constituent who lives there who's part of the Grammys. So discussing the issues, as I mentioned, you're going to have a one sheet that we send to you that you're going to be able to print off and bring with you. We would even recommend printing maybe a few copies so that you have a copy you can keep and you have 1 or 2 copies that you can leave behind with the office. And use that as an outline to guide. Again, we don't want you to kind of hold up the paper and just read it, but you can use it to help remind you of what the key ideas and key messages are. And then just introduce the topic. We have 3 things we want to talk with you about today. First, I want to talk about AI and its impact on music makers. And then you can talk about, again, what Kim outlined about no unlicensed training. You can talk about the No Fakes Act. And then you can say, next, we want to talk to you about the importance of support for the arts. And then you can talk about that one. But again, as I mentioned before, you want to humanize the issue. Don't try to be a policy expert. Don't try to memorize everything. Talk about why it matters to you personally or to the people that you work with. And then keep the meeting focused and on track. That doesn't mean that you can't have small talk, especially oftentimes the offices love to learn about what you do and learn about how you fit into the music industry and the music community. And that's actually great. That's something that we really want to encourage and want you to talk about so that they make that connection. But the time can go by really fast. So you probably have about 30 minutes in this meeting. If it's a larger meeting, sometimes those meetings go for closer to an hour. But just know if you get so logged into talking about, a music festival you've played at, and they're like, oh, I used to go to that music festival all the time. And then you kind of start talking about that. And then all of a sudden the 30 minutes are over and you haven't had a chance to talk about any of the things you actually want to ask them about. So just be mindful of the time, stay focused and keep the conversation moving. And then most importantly, for number 4, ask them for their support. So don't just talk about the issue, make sure you make the real ask. Will you please co-sponsor the No Fakes Act? And then you give them the bill numbers and ask them, force them to give you an answer. Will you support funding for the arts? And so make sure you make the real ask. A lot of times I've been in meetings before where we weren't making the ask. We were kind of trying to be, I don't know, maybe subtle or respectful, and we just issued it. And then the member of Congress kind of sat there and looked at us like, well, are you going to ask me? Like, are you going to ask me to actually do it? So they want you to make the ask. That doesn't mean they'll give you an answer right there on the spot and say yes or no, but they do want you to actually ask them for what you want. So don't be afraid to do that. That's what you're there for. So make the ask. And then when it comes time to wrap up the meeting, on the next slide, I'll let Montana bring it home.
Thanks. Yeah. So once the bulk of the conversation is done, make sure to thank the member or staff for their time. And also on the note of timing, like Todd said, most meetings will be 30 minutes, some will be longer, but sometimes meetings are only about 20 minutes. If it's an incredibly busy day, then, don't look at it like they're cutting you off short. Look at it that they really wanted to meet with Recording Academy members. And so even though they only had 20 minutes, they made a point to come meet with you guys. So if your meeting is on the shorter side, then please don't take that personally. We can't control how much time they give us, but we are really appreciative of the fact that they're able to meet with us. So anyways, so when the meeting is wrapping up, thank them for their time. And then ask to take a picture for social media, as Carla had talked about earlier. You can use the social graphics. You can ask to take a picture with the staff, with the member of Congress. A lot of the times they'll say yes. Sometimes, for whatever reason, maybe a staff doesn't want to be in a picture. That's all right. Again, you don't need to be offended. You can ask them if they'll take a picture of your group, or your group can take a selfie. It's not, it's always an ask, but it's never a guarantee. And then if you have printed out your issue brief, make sure that you or somebody in your group leaves behind a copy for the congressional office. And that issue brief, one, will have the asks and descriptions of them right there for the staff and member to follow up on, but it'll also have our email for them to get in contact with us after the meeting if they have any follow-up questions. And then after your meeting, jot down any notes and feel free. We would love any and all feedback to be sent to our Music Advocacy Day email, which is musicadvocacyday@grammy.com. So yeah, please send us your post-meeting feedback. And then, like Carla said earlier, for any photos you take, videos, please send those to socialmedia@grammy.com.
And I'll make one clarifying note on that, which is on the meeting feedback, if you're in a group that has a team captain, somebody that's kind of leading the meeting for you, they'll be the ones responsible to send that feedback to us. But if you're in a small group of just 1 or 2 people and you don't have that kind of designated group leader, then we definitely want you to send us your notes and your feedback for those meetings. So please make a note of that email address. And then the next slide. So some commonly asked questions. I'll also just throw into those commonly asked questions one that I saw in the chat, which is when I showed the different sizes and different types of meetings, there is one that I left out, which is Zoom meetings. So it doesn't happen very often, but we do have a handful of meetings taking place that will take place over Zoom. And so again, that conversationally should work the same way as if you were sitting across from them in the room, in terms of introducing yourself, letting everybody on the Zoom screen have a chance to say hello, but keep it short and tight so that you can get to the real conversation. And then just initiate the same way. Thank you for meeting with us today. There are 3 things that we wanted to talk to you about, and here they are. And so you conduct the conversation the same way in terms of how you introduce yourself and how you talk about the issues. It's just happening over Zoom. And then one other thing that I've, go ahead,
I'm
Montana.
just gonna add about the virtual meeting is obviously on Zoom, you're not getting lost in an office building or finding parking, but still joining about 10 minutes early is great, because sometimes the staff will join early. And like I said, you want to be set and prepared. And if depending, have time to touch base with your fellow advocates before the meeting kicks off. So for Zoom, plan to join about 10 minutes early.
Some logistic issues, and Montana, you can help with this too. I'm responding in the chat because it's timely to what we're talking about. If you have a team captain, if you're in a group that has a team captain, you should hear from your team captain hopefully by the end of this week. They are getting all of the information about their groups by the end of the day today, and then they'll reach out to you directly to introduce themselves. And then that's when you'll learn a little bit more about your group size. First, on the slide, something we've talked about, I'm an artist, I'm not a policy expert. Is that okay, Montana?
Yes, it's more than okay. If there's one thing I want you to take away from today, well, 2 things. Be early / on time, and don't freak out that you're not a policy expert. We're doing this day because you guys are musicians, artists, creators, and that's what they want to hear from. They love to hear your stories. And if you're asked a question and you don't know the answer to it, a perfectly acceptable answer is to say, I don't know the answer, but our advocacy team would be more than happy to follow up. I'll email, you know, you or your team captain can email the question to us, but then also give them our email and say, if you'd like to reach out, they'd be more than happy to answer any questions that we're unable to. And again, they do not, that won't shock them that you don't have a policy answer right then and there. They know that you're music creators. And I will say, what you guys do on Music Advocacy Day, even if it's not the most intensive policy talk, it fuels what we do on our here in DC year round. I can't tell you how many times I've had meetings on Capitol Hill, and within the first few minutes, the staffer tells me, "Oh, our district team met with your Academy members, and they wouldn't stop raving and talking about how cool it was to meet with artists and how fun that meeting was." And that really does help fuel our more logistical, policy-based conversations here in DC. So again, you do not need to be a policy expert; just be yourself.
Thanks, Montana. And you really hit both the first and the last question there about what if I'm asked a question that I don't know. So as Montana said, you don't have to pretend to know the answer. You don't have to try to make up an answer. You can say, I'm sorry, I actually don't know the answer to that. But give them our email address, that email address that I put in the chat, and that's there on the slide, and we'll clean up for you. Can I bring a musical instrument with me? Yes, we would love for you to do that. As Montana said, they love these meetings, and one of the reasons they love these meetings is because we make them so memorable. So if you have a musical talent and you want to share it in the meeting, that is definitely encouraged. If you are in a larger group with a team captain, coordinate that with your group leader so that you don't have 10 people show up to the same meeting with a guitar. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but we do encourage you to make it musical. Can I post on social media? Again, that's just a chance for us to tell you again, please post on social media because of how important it is. What should people wear to these meetings?
Before we dive on
Yeah.
that, for social media, we've gotten a question. What if your meeting's virtual? What do you do about a group picture? We learned this, but we've been doing this through COVID. Say do a little screen grab or use your phone and just have everybody say cheese really quick, do a screen grab, and then email it over. And that's another super fun way to get a social media post, even if your meeting's virtual. And moving on to what should you wear? Just like we don't expect you to be a policy expert, we don't expect you all to show up in a suit and tie like you're, a Capitol Hill worker. We want you to be yourself, look presentable. Maybe it's not the outfit that you're gonna wear to Coachella, but something that, is still shows your uniqueness, shows your personality, but is presentable that you would want to meet a member of Congress in.
Perfect. Thanks, Montana. So on the next slide, want to just recognize basically the reality in the room, right? We know this is just a really unique time in our country. We know that there are so many different areas of concern that people are frustrated about, anxious about. And when you walk into that room, depending on who the member of Congress is or their staff, you may immediately think of a lot of issues and a lot of things that you would like to talk to them about. And we certainly understand and acknowledge that and the reality of that. And, all of us on the team here have been in Washington, D.C. for a long time. And so we've seen a lot of different things, but even we recognize the uniqueness of this time that we're living in right now. With that said, we want to ask that for next week, for Music Advocacy Day, we keep the focus on Music Advocacy Day. We've heard from so many of you that these issues that we're talking about are critical to the music community. We know that there's a lot of anxiety and fear around AI and what AI is going to do to our industry. We've heard people concerned about cuts for federal support for the arts. And so this is a chance for us to have a unified message, for all of us to come in and say the same thing about these important issues. and be able to make a real impact for them. So respectfully, we would ask for you to keep the message focused on these issues. And that doesn't mean everything else isn't also important, because we know it's important. And for many of you in different ways, it can be really personal. But we just want to ask that you save those issues for a different day, a different time that you engage with your member of Congress. And it'll allow our music day to have that much of a greater impact. So thank you for that. Now, another question that we know will come up, many of you are going to be meeting with your member of Congress. We purposely choose a week to do this when we know that Congress is not in Washington, D.C. But that doesn't mean that everybody's at home. Sometimes members of Congress travel, sometimes they go overseas. So many of you will also be meeting with congressional staff. And people sometimes think, oh man, I'm meeting with the staff. That doesn't do anything. But all three of us on this call are ourselves former congressional staff. So I'd love to know, Kim, your take on what does it mean? Does it matter when you meet with a member of staff?
Oh, absolutely. As a former staffer, that we serve as or as the eyes and ears of the member of Congress. So when you are talking to a staffer, you are in fact really talking to the member of Congress. I know in my old positions, the member that I worked for, we had to report weekly and sometimes daily, depending on the policy issue, in terms of who we met with, what they requested, what were the concerns, the pros and the cons. And so that reporting is so important for these members of Congress to stay in tune in terms of what their constituents are thinking and feeling, and and they certainly want to be responsive to that. So yes, absolutely. It is not a slight to meet with a staffer. The staffers work so hard on behalf of their members, and again, are often serve as the eyes and ears of each member.
How about you, Montana? What's your experience?
Wow, I mean, what Kim said is staff really are the eyes and ears. And, you know, I think you'd be hard pressed to find an issue that a member of Congress has heard about, knows anything about, is interested in, that they didn't hear from their staff. And if they heard it somewhere else from their staff, I can tell you the first thing they do is they go to their staff and they say, somebody told me about this. Can you get me more information? What should I know? What are we thinking? And the staff are the ones that pull it together. They inform the member of Congress on anything that they need to know about an issue. And so really, I think meeting with the staff, I understand how cool it is to meet with a member of Congress. I think staff meetings are more important. I think you're going straight to the source with your information. And I hope you all look at it that way too, is that you're really talking to the person who is going to help make an impact, who's going to take what we're talking about and snowball it into hopefully something, hopefully a passed law, or hopefully funding for the arts. And that really does come from the staff. And if you do meet with a member of Congress, that's wonderful. I can guarantee right after their meeting, they're going to take the issue brief and they're going to hand it to their staff and they're going to say, please look more into this. I'd like to know more. But the member of Congress isn't getting on the internet and looking more into it. It's going to be the staff. And so they really are so important to meet with.
Absolutely. Thanks, Montana. So next, the big question that I know many of you have is, what about my meeting? So just another quick poll I'm going to drop into the chat just so we get a sense of who's on the webinar is, have you heard about your meeting? Do you know that your meeting is confirmed, or are you still waiting? And so one fun fact about members of Congress is that sometimes their schedules get confirmed very late. Although I'm feeling very gratified as I'm watching the poll question that many of you have heard about your meeting already, which is because of all the great work that the team's doing here to set those meetings. But sometimes it doesn't happen until the week of next Monday that many congressional offices actually look at their calendar for that week and decide what to schedule and what not to schedule. So as of right now, we have scheduled over 130 and counting confirmed meetings that are going to be taking place, which is just amazing work from our team. But we know we are still trying to schedule a whole lot more. But believe it or not, some of those will come in on early next week because that's when they'll finally respond to us. So we are going to continue to schedule meetings through Tuesday of next week. And at that point, we will stop scheduling meetings so that we can make sure and communicate clearly to everybody about expectations and where they need to be and what they need to do. So if you have not heard yet from your meeting, don't worry, don't panic. That doesn't mean you're not going to have a meeting. Our expectation is that the vast majority of all of you are going to have meetings next Thursday. What if you don't get a meeting? I'll walk through just a couple of scenarios of what happens, just so that you know that we do think through every possibility and we prepare for every possibility. One, which I saw commented on in the chat, we try to schedule every meeting we can for Thursday, September 25th. It's easier, believe it or not, for us to organize it all on one day instead of multiple days all the time. And it makes the messaging cleaner. But sometimes, in very few instances, we will schedule a meeting on a different day if we can get the member of Congress and if they really ask us to work with them on that. So for a very few number of you, you will be having a meeting that is on a different day and not the 25th. That will be communicated clearly to you so that you know what to expect. For some of you, if we cannot schedule a meeting with your specific member of Congress, we may try to shift you into another meeting that's nearby, that's geographically close to you, that you can still attend, or perhaps a meeting with your senator or your senator's staff that can accommodate you as well. For some of you that are in a really small group of just 1 or 2 people, you can actually just go to your district office and ask to meet with somebody there. You're not coming in with a large group, you're just coming as an individual, and you can show up and ask for that, and we'll send you instructions on how to do that if you fall into that category. And then for a very small number of you, if we cannot get the congressional office to respond and to schedule a meeting with us, we will still send you information on how you can contact them to send your own message, how you can, again, post on social media and be part of the campaign that way. So we work really hard through next week to get all of these congressional offices to respond and schedule, but we do try to think through every different scenario to make sure that you can still be a part of this initiative with us. Okay, next. I think, so again, as we kind of wrap up or get towards the end here, remember that every meeting matters. So you've heard us talk about congressional, whether you're meeting with the member of Congress or whether you're meeting with staff. On the next slide, you'll see just kind of the diversity of these meetings, whether you're in a really large meeting or a small meeting, whether you're meeting, while most offices or most meetings take place in a congressional office, sometimes we host these large meetings off-site. We'll take them to a recording studio or a music space. And so no matter what the setting is, every meeting makes an impact. Every meeting helps us tell the message of music and what matters. I've seen some questions in the chat, what if my member of Congress isn't on the right committee? What if they, stand this way or that way? But eventually every issue comes to a vote, and every bill has to get a majority vote up or down in Congress. And so every member is going to have something to say about these issues at some point in time, no matter what committee they stand on, no matter what caucuses they're part of or what issues they specialize in. It's important for everybody to get this message.
I'll also note that even if a member isn't on the committee that's handling the bill, they can still co-sponsor the bill. And that doesn't mean, obviously it goes through a committee first and then to the floor. So they might think that, why would I co-sponsor if I can just vote for it on the floor, not on the committee? But it really does. Co-sponsoring is a snowball effect. So one member sees that somebody that they agree, another member that they agree on a lot with issues is co-sponsoring, they're more likely to then co-sponsor. And that's really how we build broad support. So if you are told that, oh, this isn't my committee, so we would still really appreciate your co-sponsorship. And hopefully when this bill comes to the floor, we'd also appreciate your support then.
Great. So to summarize, a quick to-do list the day of. So again, you've heard us say this: arrive early. Be on, to be early is to be on time. Print out your handouts, bring some copies with you that you can use in the office. Keep the meeting on track. You want to have build a good connection and have a good conversation, but don't forget to talk about the issues that you're there for. Seek their support, make the concrete ask to support our bills and our asks. Make it social, use the social media toolkit to help spread the word, and then send us that feedback through the email that we put in the chat. So I don't think we can make it any simpler than that. So with that, I think now we have time to get to more of your questions. There's the email address again. So that is the email address that you can give to the office if they have questions that you can't answer. But it is also the place that you can send us feedback about how the meeting went, especially if they said, yes, I will support this, or no, I'm not interested in supporting this. That's exactly the kind of information that we want to have so that we can follow up appropriately. So let me look through some of the questions that we've had. Just a clarifying question about a virtual meeting. Yes, so again, it's a very small number, but there are a few meetings that'll take place during Zoom. And if you're a part of that meeting, we would send you the actual Zoom link. So normally when your meeting's confirmed, we send you the address and the time of where to go. In this instance, we would send you the Zoom link that you would use to join the meeting. And again, we've talked about timeliness. Yes, these meetings need to happen on time. Sometimes the member of Congress or their staff may not be running on time because their schedules are so packed, but you need to be on time so that you don't miss your window of opportunity. So if for some reason, your plans have changed when you get the meeting information, if it no longer works for your schedule, please let us know as soon as possible that that's the case. We probably can't reschedule it for you, but we want to make sure that somebody is going to the meeting. And so if we need to make any changes, when you get that meeting information, if you're not able to attend, please let us know. There's a question about bringing other people with you to the meeting. Again, we really discourage that because one, this is something we do for our Academy members. It's a kind of a special benefit for you being a member of the Academy. And because it's so hard to schedule these meetings, we often have to tell the congressional office up front how many people to expect and who those individuals are. Oftentimes they want to verify that the people attending are actual constituents or have a name that they can check against when people come in. So that's why once we close the registration period, we really try and are unable to add additional people because we're already talking to these offices about who the attendees are.
That if there is somebody who missed the registration period or isn't a Recording Academy member, because this Music Advocacy Day is exclusive to Recording Academy members as far as attending the meetings, that doesn't mean that they can't get involved on social media. So all Recording Academy members will receive an email next week telling them how to amplify this message on social media. And you can feel free to share social media posts with your other musician friends, even though they are not able to go with you to the meeting.
Okay, well, we have kept you for the full hour. Again, you can continue to send us questions through that email address if you have them, and we are recording this, and we'll continue to distribute this for people that want to go back and watch something that they might have missed. We're excited to have so many of you live on the webinar with us. We're excited, especially for the new members and people that haven't done this before, that you've chosen to get involved. It really is an exciting day. It's going to not only make an impact for the community, you'll probably get to meet some of your fellow Academy members and build relationships that you haven't had before. So we're really excited to see what happens. Excited also and grateful for your patience because it really is a lot of work to put this together. And so please keep checking your emails so that you don't miss any timely or important information from us. And we wish all of you the best next week going into Music Advocacy Day. Thanks, everybody.